Hello and welcome everyone to another hit episode of Write Once, Read Many. Today, I'm here in the studio with William because it's his show, in which we are going to be talking about chapters 11.E and 11.F. Thank you everyone for joining us this fine afternoon.
Yes, I almost have the link out there. But people do tend to show up beforehand anyway. Hello, Vic.
The link is almost out there. Hello.
Hello, Vale. 2 plus 4 times 5. My eyes were darting back and forth, so I imagined Vale present.
Alright, yeah, let me get that chat pulled up. Classic 2 plus 4 times 5. Am driving.
Vic, I did not get a chance to thank you for the art this morning. So thank you for the 2 arts. I
haven't even seen them yet.
Yes, it's true. It'll be a surprise for David.
I'm watching it go. I'm watching it art in real time.
And so Vale and Greg are here as well. So
hey, what up? Happy to have you.
So I've set live chat as always, but we may still not see some of the fucks. I don't know what's up with my overactive filter, but audience participation reminder. This week we're gonna make up a super limited scope, but super useful in the right circumstances. Thinker power. So yeah. All right, and then as that speed draw finalizes, we will get to see the real version. This is like Hookwolf above Shatterbird. Like, I'm gonna kill you.
I'm frankly loving it, and Chef's Kiss all over the place. A+.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you had seen the previous arts in this arc, but the theme this time is all like kind of 2 characters, and there's like Rachel and the Siberian, and then there's like you got it's Jack and Theo. It's all the pairs of like Slaughterhouse 9 and other person. Well, I mean not all that actually, because technically in the next one there will be no Slaughterhouse 9, but still like a good evil dichotomy in that one ish.
Yeah. I really appreciate this particular piece of art because we see the appropriate amount of Hookwolf in the frame.
Almost none.
Almost.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, right as you were saying that, Vic said, I also barely drew Hookwolf.
No, I think that was the exact right call. Yeah, precisely. He's too uggo to include, inside and out.
Yeah.
I do want to say excuse me if you hear a cat howling in the back of my end of audio, because he really wants to be part of things.
Yeah. You've got some fun cats at your house, so.
Oh yeah, they're a damn hoot. I guess we should probably start off by saying one of these chapters was, I thought, pretty great. One of these other chapters, could have taken it or leaving it on that one. Hence why it was not included in today's listening party.
Yeah. So we do have a lot more on the Dinah chapter, I think, like more to say. We're kind of bagging on that.
Quite a bit
we're going to be bagging on 11.E. We just got to live with that.
Yes. I think it's earned it. That's not to say it was like necessarily a terribly written chapter or anything like that. It's just, I don't think any of us want to hang out too long with these very morally aberrant people.
Yeah. Not in the way that they're morally aberrant.
Right. This particular brand.
Yeah. For themes, we didn't actually write anything down.
No, we didn't.
I don't know. The theme of like Hookwolf kind of being a dummy. I mean,
Yeah, 11.E, I guess you could say like I don't know, like misperception of power a little bit, like or not even that necessarily, but they basically the chosen all have this, physical strength equals power, and a very complicated version of that as their mindset. And I think in this chapter, it's both fed and subverted at the same time, a little bit.
yeah. And I mean, like, just such a dumbass. Like, I could fight
He
all of them. Boo,
sucks.
boo, 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 boo. I'm not even
Yeah,
worried
I
about
could
it.
probably take him. Yeah, I could probably take him. I mean, like half of them could kill me, but I could probably take him.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. Themes for 11F. How to say? Like, hmm,
Hmm.
something about how the present is bad, but the future looks even worse. Um. Which is very in line with the rest of the book.
You know
Um.
this. I I think maybe a theme for 11.f. Um, each character is sort of showing you what self-preservation looks like through sort of like very different means. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting, just because each character is behaving selfishly, but under the guise of it being for a greater good.
I would say that there's like Sundancer is being very genuine about what she's doing, but
Mm-hmm.
mm, like the fact that Coil gets angrier and like sloppier and shittier at like staying alive when that's his only goal right now, at like just the minor annoyances. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. Vic says, "I feel like
Yeah.
Jack can trump his power. This chapter starts the Kraus hate train." Um, I actually joke about that a little bit in the thing, because she does compliment him at the same time that she's like, he was not hot, but
Yeah. Yeah. What? So okay, there is a Kraus hate train that I'm not aware of.
um, basically, whenever anyone sees Kraus, for the most part, they're like, wow, look at this ugly guy.
Which is pretty uncool.
Even though the way that they say it, although it could be taken as derogatory, and all of them are like he wasn't that attractive or he wasn't that hot. It's probably like I don't know. I could imagine all of the described features, and he's still like kind of a hot hook nosed guy.
See, that's kind of how I kept picturing him. Like, and also, all of his actions pretty hot to me. But so that's just the kind of guy I am. I'm valuing his contributions over his hookness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kraus is a real piece of shit. Slick back hair, sloppy steaks, and all. Yeah, he'll
Oh
go
my
in,
God.
and they'll tell him that they're not going to serve him any sloppy steaks, but he just orders a regular steak and orders a water, and as soon as they walk away from the table, he starts pouring it on there. Yeah.
Those goddamn sloppy steaks. I mean, Coyle thinks he's hot. He's an acquired taste, says Vic. Yeah, I suppose. I suppose so.
Um. Anyway, so we got a little derailed from the idea of themes, but since we ain't got nothing more written, we'll just get into 11.e.
Well, all right. You want to pick it up, or you want me to pick it up?
Yeah, I'll pick it up. So we open up on a classic training sequence with all the testosterone you could imagine. A pretty much wretched dude named Hookwolf enters the scene, checking out the troops training it up. Hookwolf's inner monologue about how, or Hookwolf inner monologues about how badass they are, being disciplined and whatnot, and how they need to step it up if they're gonna convince heroes that racism is cool. Like that seems to be that his plan to convince the public that they're awesome actually, and I don't know if it's gonna work.
I don't. I don't think so personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, the basic mentality is too many people think white supremacists are bad guys, but they don't get it. It's, you know, it's a very edgelord mentality.
Yeah. Do you want to swap per little tick, or do you want to? Because
Sure,
okay,
sure,
so
yeah.
uh,
Um,
we got greatness equals killers dash. Basically, they fight to prove their worth. Lots of non-capes in the mix, training to fight. Yeah, it's like mostly non-capes.
uh,
They've got when we think about it, they've got
they got Menja, they got Cricket.
Menya. I don't think Storm Tiger is like
Or
there,
Menya,
but he
excuse
can't
me.
stand up.
Yeah,
So it's like Menya, Cricket, maybe Othala's in the room. I don't know.
I think Othala's around. Othala's mentioned, um, and is in the area. I don't think Othala is actively doing any training.
Yeah, so they're just
Um,
training like normies, basically.
mhm. Yeah, and then Hookwolf pits Menya and Bradley against one another, and I really love that they just went with a guy named Bradley. Um, no offense to a Bradley out there, it felt really out of place to me when you got Menya and Bradley against one another. Menya with limited power use. A lot is on the line for poor old Bradley because if he doesn't wreck Menya's day, then he can't get to be a lieutenant or whatever. Um,
Yeah, Bradley.
Bradley Holt.
Oh, I thought we were gonna.
Oh
Or
no,
did you
please
want
go
to
ahead.
do the greater ticks?
Don't even worry about it. Just yeah, I was thinking greater ticks, but go nuts.
Okay. Bradley holds his own, and then, but, uh, but Menya gets a few good hits in. Hookwolf says, "Enough!" prematurely calling the fight before Bradley could overpower Menya. He wanted to maintain the position of his powered homies so that those unpowered fucks didn't get too many big ideas. See, the thing is, too, this like really betrays the like hollowness of their ideology. It's like he has
Like
to
immediately.
he has to like game every situation to maintain like an order because they aren't like actually willing to abide by the idea that if they get like overpowered or something that they would give up their position of standing. Like, no.
Well, yeah, and it's one of the things where they're like, "If I lose, you cheated," kind of thing, and it's like, well, that's just strictly not how that works. Sometimes you just lose.
Yeah, and it's yeah, whatevs. So, moving on.
He welcomes Bradley into the Chosen's elite, which is the highest of honors for terrible, horrible people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and
Next,
next, some girl named.
oh,
Oh, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. We're
we're
gonna keep doing this the whole time.
gonna keep stumbling over each other. Um,
Yep.
next we got some girl named Leah fighting Cricket in another battle designed to teach the Chosen to keep swinging when you're down.
Uh, Cricket refuses help from Athal in the way of regeneration, so she goes in with some pre-existing conditions because she likes the scars, I guess, was her thing.
Yeah. She notices something is vaguely amiss just when
The windows shatter, knocking most everyone to the ground.
in a display of clear strongness, Hookwolf remains standing from the blast, though still took some surface damage. His people, on the other hand, got completely wrecked. You know, like the Master Race would. Oh, Vic
Uh,
says, as if they would actually hire unpowered women.
oh my gosh, for real. Uh, don't be a nerd around Shatterbird because she will use your improved vision against you in the way of glass in the eyes and such. They noted like I don't know, like half a dozen people who were all wearing glasses that just now had glass piercing their brains, their eyes and brains. Not great. And you probably shouldn't be caught texting either because she hates that and will probably blow up your cell phone, which will lead to a large pocket of blood pooling just,
Just wherever.
right in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also is funny that they had their phones in their pockets because like they were swinging swords around. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They were like rolling around, like punching each other on the ground, and they just have their phone in their pocket like an idiot.
yeah, like at least not on a utility belt or something. Its own little case,
Yeah.
but right in your pocket.
Vic says
Uh,
nerd
for real, for real,
discrimination,
for
as
real.
if they would hire people with glasses.
Yeah, true shit though. Look, if it's not steampunk goggles, it doesn't count.
Um.
So
So.
Leah lay
Mhm.
dying. Storm Tiger held a wound on their throat.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then I had said, secret, secret. Leah was a mole from Coil's organization. Can you believe it?
can you believe it? I actually couldn't believe it because I completely forgot about that fact. So you telling me that, it was a
Mhm.
lovely surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
So then Hookwolf lets the blades inside his body loose, making an admittedly neat shing sound to protect from further attack. And he called out "Shatterbird" to no response. He was wise to what was going on.
I think it's funny that she just like doesn't even deign to respond to him, and he just I don't know.
Oh no, no, I really like her the way she interacts with him throughout this, because she's very good at sort of like maintaining power even when she's like fucked up later on.
Mm-hmm. So he thinks about the possibility of the Slaughterhouse Nine arriving in full force, but feels pretty confident against about his odds against the whole team. He gives us some additional thoughts on the S9's forces.
Um, Here, I'll read your bit here. Hookwolf is clearly a dumb idiot. He thinks about the entire Slaughterhouse Nine attacking it is all daunting, not impossible. Basically a fucking moron. And probably all three of the people he mentions, Burnscar, and Crawler, could kill him. Hatchet Face for sure, and the Siberian for sure, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and if you don't mind, I'll just dip into this quote here.
Mm-hmm.
More troubling were the nine he couldn't put down. The Siberian was untouchable, an immovable object, invincible in a way that even Alexandria wasn't. Even if he were capable of hurting Crawler, he wouldn't want to. Mannequin he wasn't sure about. He knew the crazed tinker had encased himself in a nearly indestructible shell. As strong as Hookwolf was, he faced that distant possibility that any of these people could pin him down or set him up to be taken out by others. Who else? He racked his brain. Jack Slash was the brains and leader of the operation, not a threat unto himself, which is such garbage. He's absolutely a threat. And Shatterbird couldn't quite harm him, he was almost certain. Bonesaw, she was the wild card, the most unpredictable element in terms of what she could bring to the table. So often the case with Tinkers.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's right in a like literal sense that Jack couldn't like directly kill him, but Jack, as discussed before the stream, could like just
Hmm.
dance around the battlefield and kill literally all of his other dudes. Um, I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think like he could also create a ton of like environmental hazards too with his power, like that wouldn't maybe outright kill Hookwolf because he is pretty impenetrable, I guess in that way.
but he could
But
like drop a pillar on him or some shit depending on where they're
right,
fighting.
exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, basically Hookwolf is very very far up his own spiky ass.
Greg says, "I do appreciate how everybody thinks Tinkers are bullshit."
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what to make of that guy or of Bonesaw in this case. Which, yeah, regardless, Bonesaw is the ultimate wild card.
Yeah. So, Hookwolf surveys the scene, noting the broken glass as far as the eye can see, the shards standing with points facing upward. So the caltrops everywhere.
Hmm. He calls out for Cricket, who shockingly is able to respond with her still functioning artificial larynx. Um,
So Hookwolf
and then
asks,
Hook.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hookwolf
yeah,
asked
yeah.
Cricket what she had noticed was wrong before the attack. It was the sound. The glass was singing. Still is. Or, the glass was singing. It still is. Sorry, I had to use my artificial larynx to make it more real.
Right, of course. Of course, of course. It's taking me everything in my being not to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I know.
Um, Hookwolf takes Cricket with him, leaving the Chosen to Menya and Storm Tiger.
He pulls what
Um,
remains of his flesh into his core, exposing the metal within, and leaving only his eyes exposed. And you really like this. He used shifting blades, or shifting and moving of his blades to protect his eyes, essentially finding the shutter speed of his eye and matching it with the speed of the blades. And then you had also written, ironic that a dude who feels more at home in his metal skin than his skin has a whole thing about race. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Again, just pointing out this dude's got some very flimsy ideals.
Yeah.
But I did really like how he was using his power in that way to essentially like match the speed of like a fan blade, so you could see past it without while still having that protection. I think
I
that's
mean,
pretty
it's
neat,
like
if I'm being
a neat
honest.
use there, but I and we'll get to it later. But when Shatterbird is talking to him, she's basically like, "You're dumb, and you use your power badly."
True shit though. Yeah, I don't know. He's just all brute force is his thing.
Well,
So
the fact that
that's
he
great.
bothers to like change his format into the wolf form is like a big waste of time. It's a waste of his
Yeah,
time.
he literally quotes later. He's like, "It ruined the aesthetic, but blah blah blah," and it's like, all right, yeah, fuck your aesthetic, bro. Just be effective.
Yeah. 2 plus 4
Okay,
times
two
5.
plus four
Gotta
times
go. Watch
five.
the rest later. Yeah, we always get
Have a
color
lovely
commentary
day at work.
afterward from 2 plus 4 times 5. And some timestamps to tell us
Mm-hmm.
what time. It's good.
Yeah, nice. Well, I hope you have a lovely day. Two plus four times five. Okay, so Hookwolf lets himself fall from a third-story window, letting the malleable nature of the metal surrounding his body protect him. Then creates a spear from his like shoulder blades that shoots up to where Cricket is standing, which allows them to like leap from the building, grab onto this pole, and slide down to safety.
Mm-hmm. A series of glass barriers begin to appear in front of him, like a window floating in midair. He quickly notices that this would take more than a single strike to clear.
Through the barriers, he sees Shatterbird and has some less than cool observations about her. Then he begins attempting to spear through the glass panes with arms as big as telephone poles, which weird flex, but okay. And the glass continues to reform itself as he strikes.
Shatterbird switches things up. Instead of creating a giant glass cone, or instead, starting to create a giant glass cone pointing to the sky, standing about 2.5 stories tall, she raises a hand and sends it straight up into the sky.
And Hookwolf attempts to close the distance between them, but is unable to maintain traction thanks to the residual glass strewn about. So his approach is very slow.
The giant spike rains down from the sky, and as Hookwolf tries to react with a leap to avoid the impact, the glass cone changes course and follows his movement. It makes impact and nearly sheared him in half, as the book says.
Mm-hmm. Shatterbird commands Hookwolf to stand, knowing he would still be alive after the blow.
Yeah, he did get torn straight up in half in the Leviathan fight, so there is
Yeah,
that.
yeah. He's
Um,
a, for better or for worse, he's a powerful guy.
so
Just
most
an
I would
idiot.
say worse.
Mostly for worse. Mostly for worse, he's a bad guy.
Yeah. Hookwolf struggles to stand, but uses some of his reserve energy to pull it off. He allows his head and upper chest to emerge from the metal core and asks, "What do you people want?"
Shatterbird, without hesitation, clarifies that there is only her presence.
Arrogant.
You can be arrogant when you're strong enough. You should know, Hookwolf.
You here to make trouble?
I'm the Nine's primary recruiter. I have an eye for people who can thrive among us, and I've brought more than 5 individuals on board. I thought long and hard before settling on you. I'm not about to let you turn me down.
I'm fine where I am.
This isn't a request.
Is that so? You're gonna make me?
Yes, I know you are, Hookwolf. I know who you are, Hookwolf. I spent some time researching your history.
Not that interesting.
I beg to differ. You ally with Aryan groups, run one, but your motivations seem different. I have guesses as to why, but I'd rather you tell me.
Tell you? Why should I? I think we're done here.
And then Cricket begins to rise. Hookwolf noting that it seems Cricket's power can cancel out Shatterbird's.
This one's pretty dense with different things, so if you want to just take a huge chunk off it, like
sure,
maybe even the whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just snag this bit. With that, Hookwolf's image of Shatterbird's power has changed, knowing that this otherwise monstrous ability can be canceled out with a mere sound. And quote from the book: "Guess the men who bought my power should ask for a refund."
Alerts are going off in our head as the reader. We know that now we know Shia Cauldron.
Yep. The men who bought her power should ask for a refund.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which, you know.
Well, it's good because up to now we haven't really known much about who gets Cauldron powers. We know that they're, bought, and then it's clear here that you can buy powers and go totally off the rails, just killing people, and they won't care to stop you.
Yep.
Whoa, buying powers, what does that mean? Says Vic.
And I do like, that this is a character, unlike, I think, all of the others, who's just openly like, yeah, bought these ones. Oh, these powers? No, they weren't mine. I bought these ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Hookwolf doesn't take that bait and begins the assault once again. Shatterbird responds in kind with gunfire, aiming for Cricket, but Hookwolf isn't worried, though, because Cricket actually knows what the fuck is happening, realizes that a tide of glass slams into Hookwolf, pushing him aside. Oh man, I wrote that bit pretty clunky. Shatterbird resumes the gunfire, simultaneously sending more glass their way, catching Cricket in the gosh dang throat.
And I think we may have skipped over it, but she wasn't actually trying to shoot Cricket. She was just shooting the glass behind Cricket so that it would... And so that when she's jumping about, she can't do her little, sound canceller. So she was doing it to get the opening to slide all that glass. But,
Hookwolf basically has like a snide moment, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I wasn't fucking aiming for her, you dummy."
Yeah, Shatterbird just wants to talk. Hookwolf. I don't know why it's in all caps here, but Hookwolf.
Read it as if it were in italics instead.
Okay, Hookwolf. I don't know what italics would imply in this.
Shatterbird just wants to talk. Hookwolf. Kind of like that.
Okay. He says he's not into it, but still continues the back and forth before adjusting his form and pouncing.
That's much better, she said. But you're still too attached to conventional forms. Why have legs at all? Which I did want to note, that I guess does begin a theme of the Slaughterhouse 9. Not begins it necessarily, but they all have like this perspective on unconventional use of power,
and like unconventional bodies, which we'll also see like in the far distance in Ward. You'll see people who have like mangled themselves so that their powers activate differently and find new like avenues or whatever. So
yeah. It's if we're putting these in the House of Horror sort of section of the book, like you can imagine the horror the Slaughterhouse-9 engages in to make full use of their power.
right. Vic says Shatterbird just wants to talk. Fire axe. So Shatterbird evades and offers a bit more insight into her intentions in this fight. She takes a moment to stroke Hookwolf's ego.
I believe in you, Hookwolf. Are a born warrior.
Yeah, she's like totally just, feeding into the exact thing he already believes about himself to
Yep.
So he's like, I don't know, this is a pretty good offer. A born warrior, that's me.
That sounds exactly like me. Perfect.
Hookwolf continues to strike, but Shatterbird dodges each hit, continuing to use the glass to make the battlefield harder to traverse.
And Hookwolf has the most edgelord inner monologue likely in parahuman history. A warrior at heart, she'd said. He thought sometimes that he was born at the wrong time. Had he been born in Rome's heyday, the Crusades, or any of the great wars and eras where martial pride and strength were valued, he thought he might have been a great person, a soldier feared on the battlefield. He would have relished that life. Here, now, even with powers, he wasn't so notable. People with a tendency for violence and thirst for blood just didn't thrive.
Yep.
What a big fucking dipshit.
Shatterbird presses him for answers as to why he is with the Chosen at all. They both continue to move around the battlefield when Shatterbird's caught by a strong wind and takes a pretty mean fall.
Hookwolf looks in at his headquarters and sees Storm Tiger crouching by the front door and opts to fall back down to the street below to confront Shatterbird once again.
As he approaches, she's still talking aloud, trying to understand his motivations. So I figure you've been playing her basically this whole time, so.
Oh, sure. You call them Fenrir's Chosen. I'm a scholar, believe it or not. I know Fenrir was one of the beasts that brings about Ragnarok, the death of the gods. Fenrir was the beast who slew Odin, Allfather, king of the gods. Fenrir was a wolf. Too coincidental for that to be an accident on your part. A sword age, an axe age, a wind age, a wolf age. A world where none have mercy. I can believe this is your goal, your ultimate objective. Do you crave to reduce the city to darkness, blood and ash, so that only the strong will survive? Do you tell your followers that it is only the pure will rise to the top in the new world order?
Oh, Vic is right. You're forgetting the British accent.
You called them Fenrir's Chosen? No, I'm not doing that. It's necessary for the storytelling. I don't feel like I have a good British accent, and I'm
a scholar, right?
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not, I know Fenrir was one of the beasts that brings about Ragnarok. Okay, good. All right, that's enough of that. Take it away, my friend.
Yes. So Hookwolf stands over Shatterbird as she still lay on the street. She asks him to join the Slaughterhouse-9. Oh, also, before I forget, while you were reading this, I had just a fleeting thought. I don't think it's actually lines up timeline-wise, but is there any implication here that maybe Hookwolf had assassinated the Cape Allfather since Fenrir killed Allfather? I don't know that I think he might have already been dead by the time Hookwolf entered the city, but I just had that is that a thing I missed up to now?
Is someone willing to do a quick Google on that? and report the answer in the chat, because I would love to know. I mean, I think this is probably just, flavor text.
I think it's just coincidental, and like he didn't think through the name like that far. He's just like, I fucking love the Viking gods, because
that Viking imagery really gets questionable pretty quick, or at least when used in the modern day.
Yeah, I'm always like, what is it exactly that you like about this so much? Which part?
Which part? Point to it, please. All right. I think we are here.
Yeah. So, well, we're here. Yeah.
Oh yes. So he sees himself. Okay, so yeah. Hookwolf sees himself as a warrior, not a petty killer. But Shatterbird goes on, noting that the Slaughterhouse Nine need more warriors, frontline combatants who could murder the innocent and tear through their enemies.
Not interested. They're my people. I won't turn my back on them.
And with a thin smile, Shatterbird tells Hookwolf to kill her. But if he does, his dreams are over, and the remaining members of the Nine will destroy his friends and home, bestowing fates worse than death, unless he joins her. Did I write that fucking wonky? In which he will be tested and emerge either dead or as a member of the Nine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just got that thing switched, but
yeah, got them pronouns mixed up.
Yeah. Hookwolf presses Shatterbird for her own intentions, and she tells him that it's to create history and to share in the events that will be taught for generations, to be remembered, essentially. He tells him their goals coincide. I just, I realized I can just do my Tahani voice that
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that captures the essence a lot better than this.
Well, because I can't form an accent without thinking of a real person's speech pattern, because my brain just isn't that good at doing that task.
That's what you gotta do.
And so I just think of an actor I know. She's really quite British. And I mean, my accent's not going to sound like her, but it's a good starting point for my mind.
Yeah, I think it works. Yeah. Realizing the state of things and weighing his odds for escape, he reluctantly agrees. Shatterbird uses her power and raises to a vertical position. Hookwolf makes sure to impress that if they both survive, he will find the time and place to kill her. And she goes, "Already thinking like one of us. Rest assured, I will survive." She lifts into the air, using glass to neatly cover her wounds.
Hookwolf signals Storm Tiger to hold fire and begins lamenting about the insult he and the Chosen just experienced. He hates to be the underdog. I'm the overdog.
It's the only kind of dog he knows how to be. Also, Greg, thank you for doing the research. We don't get much on Allfather, to be honest. His date of death isn't specified as far as I could find. Well, that'll just have to remain a mystery. All right. So lastly, Hookwolf surveys the scene after Shatterbird takes her leave and solemnly swears to see these tests through and make plans to kill the Slaughterhouse Nine later.
Yeah.
And seeing the state of how much impact just a single member had, he notes that they will definitely need help from elsewhere.
Yeah. By the end of the fight, he kind of is like, okay, I couldn't fight all of them.
He's like, yeah, without acknowledging any misguided attempts on his part. He's just like, fine, I guess I'll have to wait to murder them.
And it's also like, he didn't win by himself. He had to have two allies to beat one. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't really acknowledge the strength in numbers aspect. If he could at least lean into oh man, my team could really done help me out, or could do X, Y, or Z, but he kind of just keeps trying to go at it alone, and other people have to keep stepping in.
Well, let's think about it. Let's go through the team members real quick. Imagining that you've got an alive Hatchet Face to round out all
Right.
9. Um,
Yep.
we've got Siberian, definitely beats him, no question asked.
Yep.
Jack could at least escape forever, and then once he's with his other capes, he could, win.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've
Jack
got
could kill pretty much everyone else.
yeah, for sure. And then we've got who was third? It was um Labyrinth. So it
Yeah.
was Burnscar. Burnscar, it's unclear to me if she could kill him with fire or not. I just don't know how his, like his crazy xenobiology works, but
Yeah, I don't know if his blades could like be melted down or anything like that, like because he's kind of already doing that with
but
his power.
she could definitely murk everybody else there. And she could
Yes.
give chase and continue, like I was talking about before stream. I think she could throw a fireball, teleport through it in the air, throw another one from the aloft position, and just keep doing that. Um,
Yep. Yep. And there would be pretty much nothing you could do about it.
yeah.
Uh,
And then we've
Crawler would.
well, Mannequin would be next.
Oh yeah, Order. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mannequin, I don't know. It's the same situation for like all of them. It's like they would kill all of his underlings, but maybe not. Like, I don't know if Mannequin could specifically kill him without kitting out a second time, but he would just do that and come back.
I think he could likely subdue him, but not kill him.
Yeah, I don't think he has anything on his base body that could like kill Hookwolf. But then,
Overpower Hookwolf completely. Yeah.
yeah, then you've got Shatterbird herself, which of course we see. She does lose, but it like takes his whole team. And she's kind of going easy on
And
them.
I feel. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think in any other subsequent fight, Shatterbird would wreck Hookwolf stay.
Yeah, and then you've got Crawler, definitely kills Hookwolf. Like no questions in my
Mm-hmm.
mind. He
Yep.
could spit acid that melts metal for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you've
Done
got
deal.
who's next? It's Cherish. Cherish could beat him, no problem.
Yep. It would be
Um,
very easy.
because her power is just like goes straight through his defenses. Um,
Yep.
so
Into his heart.
in his heart. And then uh, the last one is Bonesaw. Definitely beats him.
Saw? Absolutely.
Oh, and
100%
Hatchet
of the
Face
time.
also, I guess, because same chapter.
Yeah.
And Hatchet Face beats most capes.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, Hookwolf is being a big dumb fucking idiot, even thinking he has a modicum of a chance in this situation.
Yeah.
But you know that he's
That's
a warrior.
he's a warrior, not a thinker. That's a worm joke.
I get it. I get it. Like the classification, right? It's all
Yeah,
making
and the
sense
warrior
to
and
me.
the thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So not that warrior is a
Yeah.
classification, just
Oh, it is.
the
It is
dichotomy
now.
in arc what is it? It's the interlude from arc 26, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Low
whichever.
intelligence, high charisma is how he thinks of himself. Yeah, yeah, that is how he perceives.
Yeah.
But that's what low intelligence does to a person.
Oh, and final chapter thoughts. They used Wildbow used a slur in this chapter, and all I can really say is I wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have done it. Wouldn't have been my first choice. Probably wasn't his first choice, but wouldn't have been a choice at all, I think, in my opinion. It's one of those chapters where I get why they did it, or I mean, I get the idea behind giving this a stab for sure. I do think that if you're going to go around writing characters who say shit like that, I don't know. I guess it takes time, but those people should not be given any kind of platform. I get it. It's a tale of adversity and all that, but you know,
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it. Well, I wouldn't have done it.
And it's like, I get that it's a bad guy and stuff, but like,
It's like I could he could, and I don't want to like dig too far into it and all that, but it's just, yeah, had he said everything around it and not you actively using the slurs, I think it still would have had the exact same impact as a chapter. And we can already pretty much assume how this guy thinks just based on his internal observations. So it doesn't always feel necessary to give them dialogue that reaffirms your suspicions of exactly what a piece of shit they are.
right. And I mean, like, the thing is, there's a later chapter that I think is a slightly better version of this from like Crusaders' perspective, but like, I still don't like that chapter very much either.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't want to get it twisted in that, like, I think the subject matter is too inappropriate or something like that. I mean, it dances around that sometimes, but it's just you got to do these things really tactfully. And I'm not saying that Wildbow at all didn't try to do so tactfully. Um, it's a choice. It's a choice, and I know it wasn't a ill-willed choice. Vale says, I don't see this as providing a platform, won't comment more if it isn't worth it to discuss, but I do think that when there are tens of millions of people who think similarly, it is writable. Don't like it though. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hear you. And that's not just giving a platform. Like, I definitely don't think Wildbow is trying to say, and also this perspective is viable. Um, Not similarly in the one race of note, more along the lines as many people are racist. Yes, yes, and that's the thing. Is like I don't ever want to imply that like we shouldn't include that whole dichotomy into a story because it's a real life thing that obviously happens and is actively happening. Um, but it's just yeah. I don't think it was. I think if you're gonna do that, giving that character an entire chapter, I guess it's good that the chapter was there to knock him down a peg. So at least there's that. I get to feel that justification. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Good thoughts, Phil. I appreciate the perspective.
Vale says, I honestly
Uh,
felt dirtier, question mark, grosser, question mark. I know what you mean. Reading Purity's
yeah,
interlude.
yeah. Don't disagree there.
Um, all right. Well,
I don't know. Yeah. Sorry,
sorry, go
not to
on.
belabor on it. I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I guess this whole thing is an experiment in like how do we put ourselves into the minds of bad people, and grapple with how they perceive things because when you're typically in the perspective of a character, your goal is to like empathize with them on some degree, uh, and that you just strictly don't want to with characters who have very bad moral values.
Right, right. Um, anyway, moving on to 11.f. And I start it with, what a refreshing change. Now we're with Dinah. We start by getting a description of how she perceives the world. She's basically on information overload all the time, seeing all of her possible futures all the time. A giant mosaic of three-dimensional worlds, even with associated sound. And all the timelines stem from the present moment and go forward until the point that she dies. And then I had put in parens here, or maybe they would stop from anything that totally cancels powers. I don't know.
Hmm. Hmm. In the current moment of the story, she's seeing a lot of timelines suddenly coming to an end in the near future with two major themes. And this is a quote from the text. Either the lights were on and everything was covered in blood, or they were off and she was effectively blind. And then Dinah concentrates and sort of aligns the viewfinder with her power. She effectively asks the percent chance she'll die in the next 30 minutes, which is 43% and climbing.
Yeah. Dinah understandably starts to get anxious and thus wants some drugs to take the edge off of the situation. She goes into the next room where Coyle is using his phone at his desk. She didn't want to talk to him. but she wanted to die less. Coyle was arranging a replacement for Leah, the mole in Hookwolf's group. His conversation ends fast, so then Dinah speaks up, letting him know that there's a 44.2% chance that she'll die in the next half hour. She's pretty metal when he asks how, though. Blood or darkness.
Pretty fucking metal. Coyle asks the percent chance that he dies in the next half hour. Dinah puts it at slightly lower than her own demise with a healthy 42.8% chance. But then you got to factor in those are only the ones where he dies before she does, so he probably actually dies more often than she does. That's a good point. Coyle starts playing 20 questions. He gets that it's an attack on his people specifically and not the whole city. Odds get worse for them if they mobilize troops.
So, Dinah thinks about how time is running out and asks for drugs again. Coyle says no, that he needs her focused. Coyle's been using his power in tandem with hers, so he already knows from something that happened in his other timeline that they're being attacked by Crawler. Coyle starts asking about attack options. Purple Tinker lasers, that makes their odds worse. Travelers, even worse. Coyle gets pissed off and he shoves his computer monitor off the desk. She asks for drugs again and is once more denied. This is terrible.
Rough. Coyle grabs Dinah by the wrist super hard and drags her into the main area of the hidden base. Get battle ready, Coyle shouted. It was so out of character for him to shout. Threat incoming. Everyone starts getting ready, but fast. Getting ready fast, but it barely changes the numbers.
Trickster, Oliver, and Sundancer arrive. Sundancer is no mask costumed, but the others are totally out of costume. Dinah thinks about how Oliver was hot and the Trickster wasn't hot, but it was okay because he was smart. Coyle brings them up to speed on the situation, explains that they can't hurt Crawler in a meaningful way because, aside from ridiculously fast regeneration, they don't describe it, but it is like insanely fast. Like, it's so fast. It makes Wolverine look like a regular guy. He also gets enhanced parts with permanent improvement whenever he regenerates a portion of himself. Trickster said he read up on this guy. Crawler is a masochist, but it gets harder and harder for him to get hurt, so he has to keep finding new ways.
Yeah, which is, gosh, what an existence. No, thank you. Trickster is concerned about why he's coming here specifically. They think the only people on site who can hurt him are Sundancer and the ever mysterious Noelle. Noelle, but who even knows about Noelle? Except, shit, that's why he's here. Just like Leviathan. Crawler's coming after her.
Yeah. And there's
yeah.
Right here as well.
Oh, sorry. Coyle asks Dinah, and there is a 93.4% chance Crawler goes for Noelle first.
Yeah. Coyle floats the idea of clearing the path to Noelle. Dinah says it's an 81.9% chance they survive an hour, but she's got enough of a sense of things to check into it a bit further. There's only a 6% chance they live 5 hours. Dinah checks the numbers again. 53.8% chance that she dies in the next 30 minutes. Coyle decides that it's time to break glass in case of emergency, and she knows what's coming before he asks her. She starts protesting. Coyle wants Dinah to look for a specific future where they survive and see what they need to do.
God. Dinah is begging Coyle not to have to do this, and Trickster asks why she's so against this. She tells him it breaks her power for several days or even weeks. During the whole time, she gets even worse thinker headaches than she would from normal overuse of her power. Coyle is unsympathetic to this. We don't have time to play 20 questions, Coyle said. Would you rather die? Would she? She wasn't sure.
Yeah, I
Oh,
pulled
not
that out
yeah.
because I
Sorry.
thought that was
Would you
pretty
rather
good.
die? Would she? She wasn't sure. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then when she hesitates, Coil starts threatening that he's not going to give her drugs for a long time if she doesn't do it right now. And then she looks forward and she sees the future going through withdrawals and having that happen alongside of her thinker headaches. She also gets feedback loops where if she's likely to suffer withdrawals, she'll feel the future echoes of it as it becomes more and more likely. And I pulled out some longer quotes here, but I put them in the powers, knowledge, and world building section. So we're just gonna kind of scoot along, knowing that she's got these headaches. We'll talk about later.
All right. Dinah relents and agrees. She picks a path forward, and as she sees more, her power hurts her more. The faraway possibilities metaphorically flying about, cutting up the inside of her mind. Now, pet, as quickly as you can. Dinah thinks to herself that he doesn't really know what he's asking her to do, like self mutilation of the mind. She pushes through the pain to keep on living and to get those drugs. As she moves in on the image and it grows from a tiny size to her full mental view, she immediately throws up onto the catwalk and Sundancer's legs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Womp womp.
But Sundancer is one of the characters who actually has a healthy supply of empathy and humanity. So instead of getting
Oh,
mad, she rushes to get to Dinah's level and help her not fall the fuck over. Um, Dinah starts more or less having a seizure, like a tiny little seizure, because of the pain from the power. And Sundancer catches her since she was already expecting a fall a moment ago. Too much, too fast. The image was overly sharp and detailed, overwhelming her senses, shredding all sense of time and present.
it's unclear how much time has passed, but there was enough time that there's a cold cloth against her forehead, and Oliver has brought a bowl of cold water. Running out of time. Give her a moment. Whatever that was, it just knocked the poor kid out. That deadline she gave us, it's here, now. I know, but pressuring her won't help anything.
Yeah. Dinah smells a really bad, bitter smell and almost starts retching and throwing up again, and they realize she's awake because she starts murmuring for them to make the smell go away. Um, Coil
It's
is,
very sad.
yeah, Coil says it's a symptom of what's happening, and they need to make sure she doesn't scratch herself too much or scratch her corneas. So I guess she'll try and scratch her
Ugh.
own eyes out sometimes. Fun.
Yeah, that's rough.
Um, Dinah says they
Hang
need
tight,
to
hang
go
tight, tight.
to the darkness. There was a sweat and meat smell there too, and all of them were pressed close together. They need to go into Noelle's room and hide inside the vault doors with her. It was actually Trickster who figured it out a moment beforehand, but the flow of the stuff was weird if I just. Anyway.
All good, all good. Um, in the scene, she saw everyone was there in the vault, and Noelle was there with them. Coil scoops up Dinah. Her skin crawled at the contact of her body against his. The numbers get worse if she protests because Coil gets angry and sloppier in the fight situation, even if she just flinches away from him. So she uses her nerves of steel to just put up with it. Coil starts moving down the stairs, two at a time, and yells to a soldier to open the vault door.
They hear some rustling far off, and Coil quickly dives into yet another question. He asks the chance of Crawler killing them now that they've committed to a new route. Dinah resists, citing the ongoing crushing headaches and illness due to overuse of her power.
Coil insists, and she reads the subtext of his words immediately. No power means no candy. She did. The scenes had no order to them. They were all jumbled, and trying to pull some semblance of order and sense into them was like thrusting her hands into fire and razor blades, thrusting her mind into fire and razor blades.
So
What do you
once
think there?
again, she suffers the drawbacks immediately, losing her strength and completely. Sundancer urges Coil to stop, but he knows what he's doing. A guy like him would naturally run enough tests to push her limits to know roughly how much danger she's in. Still, Dinah proceeds to vomit little more than bile. Coil expresses little to no sympathy and presses for his numbers. She's able to utter, 3.1%.
The vault door opens, and Coil asks Trickster to let Noelle know when they've arrived. Which I really like that this, they're kind of constantly reinforcing the Trickster Noelle relationship. I just think it's good. It's good flavor. Trickster agrees, but reluctantly asks Dinah for a number, upsetting Sundancer. Though for good reason, because he, better than everyone, knows how possible it is that Noelle might lose her shit and murder everyone.
Yeah, so Dinah ain't having it, but Coil dangles the carrot of, last one, I swear, knowing her power couldn't actually kill her, only make her wish it had. She agrees, fighting through tears and agony to provide the answer. 9.8%. Not bad. Due to the strain, Dinah loses a sense of time and place, noticing that Trickster is out of sight. Coil, in a very coily way, thanks her, I guess, and gets to order his troops into place in preparation for a toe-to-toe with either Crawler or Noelle.
The crashing and damage grew closer, announcing Crawler's presence just outside the vault doors. Some last-minute employees enter the vault, packing in tight with the rest of the group. On the other side of the room, Trickster emerges from the darkness after speaking with Noelle. She's hungry, and you won't like her when she's hangry.
Yeah. Noelle asks Trickster to turn out the lights in her room so as to avoid being able to see the tantalizing meat sacks just standing around.
Dinah hears an apology in the darkness from Sundancer as she notes the change in light behind closed eyes. Sundancer goes on to say how she regrets being unable to help Dinah, not because of the situation at hand necessarily, but because of the promise the travelers made with one another. Her and I both agree. It sounds kind of lame.
She pushes through the next wave of crashes outside the vault door and continues trying to justify herself to Dinah, who couldn't quite muster a response in her state, but opts to grab Sundancer's hand.
A frustrated roar bellows from outside the metal doors, paired with a series of hits. Guns cocked amidst the crashes, and in the most horror film moment possible, Noelle calls out from the darkness, "I am so hungry." Trickster leads her further away from the crowd amidst Noelle's growing urge to eat. Dinah notes the similarity in her urge for the candy as Noelle's for sustenance. The difference being that Noelle can, just take what she wants.
Mm-hmm. Trickster continues to talk Noelle down, as if she were holding a loaded gun to everyone. To everyone in the room. He empathizes that he can't promise one of them won't shoot, but Noelle
Sorry, yeah, that's referring to Coil's guards.
Gotcha. But Noelle retorts that she would live either way. Trickster reminds her that her friends' lives are on the line just as much as anyone else. Sundancer brings up the promise that they made. Promise with a capital P. Rhymes with pool.
Damn right. Noelle eventually agrees to return to her room, asking that Trickster join her so they can talk in private. With her gone, so is at least some of the sense of building tension. Meanwhile, Dinah continued to try to get her mind and power back in order. Quote from the text, she said about the tedious task of trying to reorganize the images in her head, building a house of cards in an unpredictable wind. Every time the numbers changed, what she'd started to sort out fell apart.
Despite her efforts, she knows things will have to properly calm down before she's able to get her head on straight. The noise from outside the vault came to a halt, and Coil allowed some time to pass before ordering his troops to investigate and clear the complex. Dinah felt the uncertainty of the situation since she couldn't make use of her power.
They eventually exit that vault, emerging into the light and begin surveying the damage. Dinah lets little time pass before pleading for her candy. Coil agrees, sending her to her room. To have, I think it is Pitter, come to provide her medicines. Was
Hmm.
the person's name, which I
Yeah.
just thought was curious.
Well, because he is the only one who knows how to safely administer the drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. So
Yeah, if you want to take that.
yeah, yeah. When Dinah finally lies down, she pushes herself to use her power once more, this time for her own question. Losing all progress she had made sorting out her power, she calls for one last number 31.6%, more than 4% higher than it had been yesterday. 31.6% chance she'd go home, or she'd get to go home someday. Someday.
Bow, bow.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that, final chapter thoughts, buddy. What a much better chapter.
Yeah, yeah. I had said that I think that this chapter does a great job of conveying the feeling of dealing with having Dinah's power affecting her perspective on everything all the time. Like, it's a really overwhelming, thinker power.
hmm
And being burdened with future knowledge that is painful to gain and hard to act on. So, yeah.
Uh, yeah, and what kind of makes me think a little bit, in talking about that is like how the overuse of her power affects her physical perception, like her normal human senses, because it's the information she receives via those senses which would dictate what her power is able to see. So it makes me wonder, like, if she's like blacking out or not, able to comprehend what's going on, does that influence the realities that her power would conjure?
Well, I think the idea would be that when that happens to her, it's because whatever the present moment is, that's where all the timelines start. So like
Right.
it's kind of already
So I guess it
factored
wouldn't really
in that
matter.
like
Yeah.
she's X amount likely to take this action to look into the future.
Right, right, right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So yeah,
Um, yeah. Yeah, I did also have to note, in the audiobook reading of this chapter, it made me giggle every time I heard Dina instead of Dinah, but
yeah,
that
yeah.
happens.
And I said that I also
Um,
thought that Dinah's perspective is just kind of really funny. Like some of the stuff she thinks. I think that Wildbow has like a big strength, especially with some of his characters, like the protagonist of Ward, and I think Taylor as well. Where just like they're not like a funny person, but the way that they think is funny because of like
mm-hmm.
the like I don't know
Just
tragic
these like
humor.
idiosyncrasies. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot of gallows humor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, I think especially in juxtaposition to the last one, like a pretty dang impressive chapter.
If I
Gave
was
us
to order list to numbered list the chapters of this arc in like goodness, let me think. This would be hmm
hmm.
this would be number like 3 or 4. It's definitely in the like good half of them, but I think that for me, I think it'd be 3. I think it's like Amy, Rachel, Dinah, Armsman, uh,
Armsman.
yeah, Colin, and then I don't know the bottom half of the list, but except the Hook Wolf is last. But I guess there's only 2 more to rank. Second to last is Labyrinth. Wait, no, but Theo. That's a tough call. They're on
Theo's
the same
chapter.
tier. The Theo and
Yeah.
Labyrinth are equal tier.
I agree with that. Um, yeah, yeah. I guess do we want to loop back? Were there any like really identifiable themes that came to light after we talked about it? Anything
Um.
that really?
Uh. I mean,
Hmm.
there's sort of a certain like book wide like not for the whole book, but for like this portion onward, once nine is introduced, there are like kind of a lot of inevitabilities and like ticking clocks, like uncertain ticking
Mm,
clocks, where it's like
right.
we might die in the next 30 minutes with this high likelihood if we don't take these actions. And then there's like, all these like scenarios that'll come up later where it's like oh, and I guess the Leviathan thing is kind of like the inevitability. She's like a ticking clock element because she
Yeah,
sees
yeah.
the possible disasters that loom.
Right. She's kind of the mouthpiece for the ticking clocks, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
Because and especially when that's delivered as merely the percentage of possibility that a particular future will occur. Um, and you can tell that sometimes those numbers are what they are to give us like odds to go up against, and sometimes they're just there to remind you like, oh no, that's a really bad idea. Don't do that.
Right, right. Um let's see here for arcs. I don't really have any more specific arc stuff. I still think that this collection of chapters has a pretty like it's a clear theme that each one is about one of the Slaughterhouse Nine slash like introduces
Right.
them slash like gives us the tone that they're supposed to bring to a scene. And I think
Hmm.
that's the most valuable thing that it does overall as a like whole arc is that they kind of
Yeah.
like tone tag all the future scenes with
Hmm.
any given Slaughterhouse Nine member in it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that was even successful in 11.e, like towards the end of it for sure.
Yeah, so like that is there. But like just the perspective, like how it's selected seems pretty random. This was a really creative way to bring the Slaughterhouse Nine to the forefront. They got serious treatment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. This
Wholehearted
was
agree.
like the year date thing or whatever, and it was like they're going to be the main antagonists for the next three arcs, and like they could have all like blurred together very easily, like even though they have distinct powers, just because there's a lot of them. Like I remember
Hmm.
in Inuyasha, which would play all the time on Adult Swim or whatever.
Yeah.
Inuyasha would have like this band of eight bad guys that all had like very different powers and they had distinct looks. But because I wasn't consistently watching, and I didn't like spend as much time with these characters, I guess, they all kind of blended together. I remember there's just like
Right.
they're all zombies, I think, and that meant he couldn't use his super attack on them because they're not technically demons, and then they all had a superpower.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
them was
Like
Dr. Jekyll and
and
Mr. Hyde. He stood out a lot to me. But
uh I know, I think that's a great point though. Like this if you're gonna go around introducing like an entire team of villains, especially when that's on the larger side of what we usually interact with, of people who are like in a unit, I think that this does a really great job at giving them all a very unique voice for each one.
yeah, because I mean, we see other large groups like the overall Empire 88 initially,
Hmm.
there's tons of dudes in that we just like we know fuck all about
They're
because like
fodder.
it's
Yeah.
like we know what their power is, but we don't know their personality. We don't know like what they do for the organization. We don't really know how strong a lot of them are. Like I don't know how powerful Krieg or Alabaster's powers are. They kind
Hmm.
of do stuff. I mean, like it's
Yeah.
very easy for
They're
people to fade
around
into the
is what I
background.
know.
Yeah.
Well, and even like, even this in comparison to some of the treatment that like some of the main heroes get, like we don't learn a significant amount about Alexandria in terms of her personality until like a good chunk later. Like there's
Yeah,
some
yeah, we
characters
learn
who
a
are
lot during her interlude, I think. But yeah, she's just
mhm,
takes a while to do that. And this is really putting in the work on that. Like also, maybe this introduced the idea to him cuz the next section of the story, let's see. There's arc 12, 13, 14. They have very few interludes. There's two interludes a pop for three very long arcs. And then
mhm.
15, he just goes ham. There's 4 interludes in 15, 3 in 16. 17's another interlude arc, and then 18 has 5 interludes. So he was like
really leans into him.
Well, it's kind of like the way like it's another reason why I break up the story like movements, because I think there's like chapters, arcs, and then like my own term that I think I stole from We've Got Worm, but like larger movements of the story where like I would consider everything from the start up to either the end of Sentinel or the end of Arc 8 to be like one thing, because I kind of consider the Ward's arc to be an like a like it could be like a short book that you read between them or something, or it could be like an epilogue arc, or it could be like a prologue to the next portion. But either way, it kind of is that. And then you've got the arc, 10 through 14 are kind of all one thing. And it's all the post Leviathan stuff and the Slaughterhouse 9. And that has like kind of its own structure too, where there aren't that many interludes. And then, arc 15 through 19, which is kind of all the post Slaughterhouse 9 stuff, that all has like the heavy interludes, like crazy kind of stuff. And then it like settles back down again for 20 and onward. I don't know.
They go back to just the 1 or 2. But also, I think the length of the chapters increases, but I think the number of chapters decreases.
There was a definite split point before arc 7 where like the word counts rise over the whole book in like a stuttering but steady like average. And they go from being about 2,000 words a chapter to being about 8,000 words a chapter on the whole.
Yeah.
So they get about 4 times longer.
Mm-hmm. Can I jump in and remind you something? We need some new art on this screen.
Oh, my word. I never changed it. That is an oversight, but
oopsie doopsie. Well, everyone, we're just going to take a moment and really look at this. Really appreciate it.
We'll do so after we finish the speed draw. Everybody can look with their eyeballs at the speed draw and the drool, that part too. Whoopsie.
Vic, we're so sorry. The art is so wonderful. I'm so sorry. Whoopsie.
So the characters section though, we can jump into it.
We didn't flesh this out entirely, but I took a couple just bits of text for Hookwolf, which I think showed like his physical being. They describe the way he moves pretty well. As he walked, he wasn't moving his limbs quite so much as it might appear at first glance. Instead, he extended one growth of metal as he retracted another, only generating the illusion. 100 new parts growing each second to suggest shifting musculature, a cohesive form, when he was anything but. Only the core skeleton, the shafts of metal that form the limbs from the shoulders or hips to his knees, actually moved without retracting or extending. Which I think is, we talked a little bit about how like it's kind of silly of Hookwolf to use his power in such a way that it provides a certain look or an aesthetic or anything like that. And this is partially that, but I do think it's just like an interesting way to, completely alter his mode of movement and how his power can accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit more here from the text. Hookwolf struggled to pull himself together. He used hooks to pull the metal back toward his core where it could be reabsorbed, recycled. It didn't take much of his reserve of internal energy to create and move the metal, but it took some, and he'd rather not run out. And that's just kind of an interesting. His is a power where I get that he has to rely on some kind of energy source to do what he's doing, but I didn't quite think about it in the way that it would, like a gas gauge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My thought would probably be like, I don't know, maybe the movements would get clunkier and less fluid or something like that, to the point where I don't know, he might just like jam up or something. But
I was thinking he could like
um,
run out of material eventually. Might be a thing.
also that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, able to absorb less at a time or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just
then we have a.
putting down a few more names
Oh,
so
you're
that we
fine.
have a little bit of a guide. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, and
And then
between
just a.
the
Oh, go
characters,
ahead.
real quick, also we can marvel at Dinah. This is like
Yes,
a
yeah.
classic Vic drawing. For people who have not seen any of her other art, like this to me wouldn't surprise me as just like a totally non-worm drawing.
I
So,
really like it. Your way of using like simple color palettes is very interesting. I like it. Like it makes it pop. And
yeah.
that drool, that disheveled look of a sweet Dinah, so very sad.
Mm-hmm. Classic sad sweet Dinah.
Mm-hmm. Um. All right. I don't know, and I think we talked in length about Hook Wolf. I think. Hold on. Vic draws lots of skin tight snake suit guys, is what I'm hearing. This is a picture Taylor carries in her wallet. Oh my gosh, you're probably absolutely right. Um. Anyway, yeah, I think we talked a lot about Hook Wolf, and some of his less desirable traits. Plenty to be said there, but we're good. Shatterbird. Just another quote, kind of describing her physicality a little bit more. The upper half of her head was covered in a helmet of colored glass. Her body was covered with a flowing garment made of tiny glass shards, like scales. Aesthetically, I think Shatterbird would be fucking buck wild. Uh, Essentially being like a stained glass, like mosaic floating around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Power wise, we can see she's clearly very like versatile, has a lot of
Oh,
fine control.
I was gonna say we could probably
Uh,
like since we don't have anything written
oh
about her power
sure,
here, we could talk about that in the
sure.
powers section.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess personality wise, I very much liked that, at the end of her little fight with Hookwolf, she, I guess you could say, was beaten, but at no point really seems to really like, he didn't really seem to have the upper hand in a firm way at any point. Um, and her lying on the ground, like, I don't know, she could have just not been doing that at any time and kind of
She never
allowed him
lost
to
her
feel a little bit more
confidence.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Part of me thinks she was just like letting him feel like he was in control of the situation, um, you know, because it might influence him to see her point a little more. I don't know. That's not a good way of putting that, but yeah, I definitely think she was more feigning a lack of control in that situation.
Mm-hmm. I think there was a moment when he could have like crunched her, but she was just relying on the idea that she could play him. In a way,
Yep.
she is the most like Jack of all the other Slaughterhouse Nine. I think that her personality
Huh.
matches his more than any of the rest of the crew, except that he thinks she's boring. But
Which
whatever.
I don't know, do I get though. I get it though because she plays the whole like I'm a scholar, like I'm a literate person. I'm smart and I'm still choosing to be a mass murdering maniac.
Well, but
Like
the thing is
I
too,
I
like her whole I'll be seen like I'll be notable in the future. Like no, there's like lots of other people like this is like forgotten about given like just how crazy the events of the world like are because of the existence of capes.
yeah,
In
that's a good
the end,
point.
she's just like a statistic.
Sad. Sad but true. But also, yeah, and yeah, that being her whole kind of motivation being like, we'll make history. And it's like, yeah, if you want to be like a punctuation mark at best.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But
Yeah.
Greg says, yeah, but at least she's a sadistic statistic. Nailing it.
Love that
Um,
alliteration. Nice. Nailed it.
Talking about alliteration,
Uh,
chosen capes. That's right. Technically alliteration, I think.
yeah.
Um,
Chosen capes. We've got Menya. We've got Cricket. We've got Othala. We've got Storm Tiger.
I think that's it.
Um, and Obby Hookwolf.
I think that's their whole lineup. They didn't get a
think
good
I
roster.
think that's their. No, not really. Not really at all.
Like the only person they picked up from the other, essentially from the other team, was Othala. Like, because there was the split in the. There's a split in the forces, and like Hookwolf got these four, and then what's her name? Purity got everybody else.
Yeah, not a good divide there.
She has
I don't know how you could be in
Crusader,
this group and be like,
Nightfog.
we're the leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
Because Menya can like grow and shrink, basically alter their physical body in that kind of way.
Mm.
And what was and Cricket has like a sonic power. I didn't
A
quite understand
subsonic
Cricket's power.
drone. It
Subsonic drone, much like a cricket.
it makes you like lose your sense of balance and whatever you call that sense, where it's like your own body in relation to itself, and
Right.
so you can't shoot for shit.
Equilibrium.
And she's really fast at like jumping out of the way, and good at predicting where the gun is pointed. So even if you like point it at her, she still jumps out of the way usually.
Right. And
Uh,
Othala can use regeneration. Is that right? Pro, pro, proprioception.
Proprioception. Thank you, Greg. Proprioception.
Thanks, Greg.
I will do my best to not just forget that right away. Othala does not have regeneration, but has a power to give other people powers. So she herself has no power. But she grants, as long as she's in contact with them, essentially, and then for like 30 seconds longer after that, she grants
Right.
like super speed or invincibility or like coordination or like lots of perks, but also regeneration is one of them.
Okay. So yeah, it's like just physical enhancements of various types.
Yeah, I think that she can do some things that like aren't physical enhancements, so to speak. Like they're like immunity to powers is, I think, something she can grant.
That's interesting.
But Storm Tiger, his power is like a wind thing where he builds up wind into his like claw shapes, and then he can expend wind out, like blow it up. And he also has
and
super
just
smelling.
Just like an airbender, sort of.
Yeah, he's like a shitty airbender, and he forms it into air claws that he explode. He like stabs people with them and explodes the air from the inside.
Okay, cool.
And then
shitty airbender with super smell.
Yeah, he's got super smeller. And the only one we learn about their personality in this chapter is Cricket.
Right.
Cricket. The things we know in total about Cricket. Now we know that she likes her scars and prefers to have them. And before we knew that she kind of likes to torture people. So those are the two things we know.
And artificial larynx.
Yes.
Because
she's had her throat slit in the past.
Yep.
I think Bradley and Leah is all we got. Leah, you put cop? She's not a cop.
I mean, I'm JK. I know. I'm just JK. Because she's a double agent. That's all I mean.
She's more like, I guess if we're gonna jokingly make fun of her, she's like a Fed.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. A Fed. Yeah, I think those are the only two that have any note. one of them dies and the other gets super fucked up. Because Bradley doesn't die, he just gets torn up, right?
Um, yes, I think he's one of the several who don't die.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, one of a
Um,
few.
right. And we know Bradley was strong enough to take on a slightly bigger Minya.
But we don't know anything about
Just as
his
a
personality other than he voluntarily joined the Chosen.
Yep, which doesn't speak, doesn't put him in high regard right out the gate.
And we don't really know anything about Leah other than that she was a double agent. And like Coil's people are usually like a lot of them are like trained soldiers who are like good at going into deep cover. So like whatever we
Hmm.
saw of her here was like probably all just like layers, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Um, Another character who was kind of a little bit more fodder, like
Mm-hmm.
um, Dinah. You want to let it rip on Dinah?
Yeah, we learned loads about Dinah. We talked about her whole chapter. She leads a pretty miserable life, but she has her 31 point whatever percent hope. Let's see, 31.6% hope that
Hmm.
someday Taylor will save her.
Yeah. I really like in this chapter that Dinah shows a lot more self-awareness of her situation. Um, like in terms of how she behaves with Coil and his whole shtick with her, like you can tell she's very much just trying to do the exact things that will better secure like a safer path forward a little bit. And is very aware of like, yes, this candy I want is drugs. Like I am not his pet, I am his slave. Like all that shit. Because there does hit a point in stories like this where a prisoner or something like that, they get either the Stockholm syndrome stuff, or she would have been so young as to maybe being actually brainwashed in this case. But um, no, it's
Right. I
good
mean,
to
she
see.
was 12, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, 12's a very impressionable age.
yeah, but it hasn't been like that long.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
I mean, like
yeah,
a
and which I
bad
wouldn't
amount of
necessarily
time,
assume.
but like I guess my only point is just that like if she had been like fully like I don't know brainwashed or whatever, it would have seemed like it hadn't been that long or I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I hear you. It wouldn't. This wouldn't. It's not like she's been there for years and years at this point or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. But it's just nice to see that, like, despite her circumstances seeming very dire and her literal chance for escape now improving to 31.6%, that she's like maintaining a good sense of self and still chasing her own motivations,
Well, she's
which is
also
nice.
learning how to tack the boat. You know,
Hmm.
she's just like increasing those odds all the time because she's going in the right direction. She's like a
She
Wind
watched a
Waker
lot of
Link.
yeah, exactly. And she got really inspired after, the only thing Coyle lets her watch is old MTV, which talks about rocking the boat a lot, and I think she
Hmm.
really latched onto that.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Um, so we got Coil. We see that he's a huge piece of shit, and that with her superpower, she superpoweredly knows how much of a piece of shit he is.
Yeah, he's pretty much a complete monster, and I don't know, he's constantly oscillating between his whole weird persona and I don't know, he has to like drop it a little bit when things get actual serious, like him, obviously the situation called for it, but him like uncharacteristically yelling out and stuff like that to then, I don't know, tone that down to be his weird, creepy self. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Um, he he has all these precautions set up, and it does work out in this scenario. But it kind of proves that like there are certain powers that like once someone's after you with that power, I don't know how much escaping there is to be had.
Right. Yeah, exactly. because there will, especially with someone like Crawler, where it's or Noel, it's just very possible that regardless of what two choices you might make, both of them are going to lead to an untimely demise.
Right, and he has to use both of their powers to combo and max out Dinah's super meter, and then cast her level 3 super to fucking win the thing. And like it's
Yeah.
basically like a self destruct move, so like it's he's going crazy up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because Dinah's just a glass cannon over here. She could find the big numbers, but she's out for the count after that.
Yeah, yeah. Once the explosion goes off
Um,
in the glass cannon to fire at one.
um, yeah, yeah. As far as like Coyle's motivations and all of that, I don't think we learn a lot more here. I think his intentions are still pretty clear. In this case, it's very much just like, what can I do to, you know, make it so the most of us survive out of this? And he definitely even considers putting Crawler in contact with Noel before it becomes really apparent that that will ensure a lot more murder.
Right, and he we already know him pretty well from his own interlude chapter in Arc 8, and I
Hmm.
mean we knew from then that he was just like a huge piece of shit.
Yep. Yep. He's just a slimy guy,
He's
and
over
he's
there
good
with
at it. But
Trickster. They're ordering sloppy steaks together. They both
Coyle's
have
steaks are
slicked back
certainly the
hair.
sloppiest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you think this is slicked back?
This is pushback. I can't get over that
I think
sketch.
Trickster's got pushed back hair, and Coyle definitely
Has
has
slicked back.
slicked
Okay,
back
that's
hair.
fair. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, it was his presence was interesting in this chapter. I don't think it was especially revealing in any major way.
Yeah. Yeah. Sundancer. I feel like we kind of know her, but we like continue to see that she like I don't know, is basically a good person or whatever, but she's also like stuck in this weird
Hmm.
cycle of like convincing herself she has to be on this particular, super team, which like there's good reasons for it, but also like you got to cut bait someday.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I think we learn a lot about, or not even a lot per se, but it's reinforced of her like value system. Like we know where her allegiances are, but yeah, during this chapter, she's doing a lot of self-justifying her own behavior to both herself and Dinah, just to be like, look, I can't do the good thing, but I am a good person. There's just other stuff going on. And it's like, yeah, all right. I mean, I get it, but you know,
Yeah,
that's clearly a big compromise.
right, right. And she's
But I
upsetty
mean, same,
with
same side. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to transition us. She's really upset with Trickster for the way he's acting
Hmm.
in the chapter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Trickster wanting to push Dinah just a little bit further, using her power some more, which Trickster doesn't seem to be like reveling in the fact that he's, having to ask her, but he does ask her. I
Right.
think I think he asks a valuable question, admittedly. I think it's a good one to know.
Yeah. But still, kind of just shows he's pretty ruthless. He doesn't have as many
Yep.
roots as Sundancer.
Yeah, he's completely without them.
Yeah.
That's thanks to his pushback here, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our hope for Trickster as a character this early in the story is definitely, you know, maybe you should wash your hair. Just not push it back next time.
Right, right. Like just don't dump a glass of water in your steak next time you're at a
Yeah,
restaurant.
you
I
don't
think
need sloppy steaks. You can eat a regular steak.
you don't. It's just fine. No one's gonna be mad at you.
In fact, they'll be a lot happier. So,
um, I don't know. Yeah, as far as like Trickster, there's not a lot of like power use or anything like that going on. It reinforces his relationship to Noel quite a bit and shows that there is some friction amongst the travelers in terms of how they might each approach things.
yeah, and I think it's pretty clear that like Trickster cares more about looking good if Noelle is in earshot than
Right.
normally.
Exactly.
Like, he acts differently around her.
Yes.
And
Like, yeah, pretty distinctly differently.
it could be said that it's because of her, like, power and whatever, but I think we'll see later that, like, this is the same dynamic they have always had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because you could definitely read that in this moment as being like him knowing sort of what buttons to push to avoid her losing it completely. But I think you're absolutely right, where it's like that may be true, but also he has like it's a genuine thing he's doing.
It's also, like, powers are just, like, expanding the normal into the fantastical. And, like, this
Right.
is just, like, this situation of it being, like, a huge, ultra deadly deal if she, you know, becomes upset and having, like, really, like, easily imbalanced emotions and things. Like,
Hmm.
it's just what their dynamic already was. But, like, instead
Yep.
of, the punishment of, like, screwing up being death, it was that they would break up, which to Kraus was death.
Yep.
So,
um, yeah, yeah, and Noelle. I think we learn that the big thing is that we learn her urges are becoming harder to control. Um, just being in the presence of human beings while she's hungry, and they noted she had already been fed, and Coyle's like she must be requiring more food lately. So even despite receiving like sustenance, she's still, you know, monstrously hungry for meat, even if that meat is her friends or just, like
whoever.
a young sick girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and, she's clearly, like, not in any control over her emotions. Like, she can't tamp it down. Everything's a 10 out of
Right.
10 on the scale. So,
Yeah, and she quickly dives into saying like just some very detached shit. You know, separating herself from both her team and sort of like humanity as a whole, which I get why, but you can tell she no longer considers herself as like one and the same as her team or anyone else.
right, right. Um, we can't super dive into Noelle because, like, there's just, like, I don't know.
It's
That
spoily town.
will be, like, explored more later. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so for I think that's kind of it for the characters section, unless there's something you want to jump back to.
No, I think that covers most of the major moments.
Major moms.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, Crawler. Is there anything we want to talk about Crawler wise? In
We
terms of
learn
we
that
don't
he's
like
like a
learn much about
masochist
him.
who wants to get hurt. I guess, yeah, he's worth adding actually because we do learn about his personality. Um,
Yeah.
so Crawler. I think we technically know his name. It's like he is either Ned or Bradley, but I don't know which one.
He can't be Bradley. He's got to be Ned.
Cause Breed is the other one of Ned or Bradley.
Huh. Huh. Um,
I
yeah,
can't
I think
remember which is
yeah,
which.
Crawler's personality. Yeah, yeah, I can't remember. Crawler
Crawler
is
is
Ned.
Ned.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Thanks, Greg. Um, yeah, and as far as Crawler's personality, yeah, we learn he's a masochist, that he's constantly chasing something new to be able to deal damage to him, so he can both, I'm sure, get that gratification from the harm he is receiving, as well as improving his body and abilities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the regenerates but better is already like a good power, but when it's like cartoon speed, like speed draw speed regenerate.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like you wouldn't rarely could anyone deal enough damage in a quick enough time to keep him down, which is kind of like how some of the Endbringers kind of behave a little bit too.
Yeah, and so he's always trying to attack locations to force fights with powered people whose powers could still affect him in ways that no unpowered thing could.
Right, exactly.
Which kind of makes sense from the power perspective. Like, that's really leaning hard into what it would also want, because it's just like, keep collecting data. I mean, what?
Yeah, it's literally the perfect, because you wonder, like, oh, is he a masochist before he triggered, or did his power lead him to become a masochist?
Well, the
And
thing is,
I think
I have to
either.
imagine that he was a masochist before to some certain degree, but because for natural triggers, your mindset has to match up with the power to a huge
Sure.
degree already, and then
Yeah.
like you kind of have to be aligned with it to work well. And I would guess he's
Right.
in like perfect alignment with his power.
Yeah. Seems to be, which is, it's what makes him so formidable.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on to powers, knowledge, and world building, we've got Shatterbird. Shatterbird's powers we see are quite devastating and can be very nuanced. She can use it to
Hmm.
fly reasonably well. She can make the ground in the area post attack like a hazard in itself, like a hazard to the point that it will definitely kill a person by just pointing all the glass upward. Um, I mean, she can just do
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
tons and tons. She's crazy versatile.
Yeah. Yeah. Hookwolf. There's a quote that Hookwolf says, where he's basically like, he's saying how dope her power is, and oh, there it is. And Hero was thinking you'd won the lottery with powers: incredible range, fine control, devastating force, versatility, and all it takes is the right noise, and it all falls apart. Um, it shows, like, yeah, her power has immense
I'm
capabilities.
gonna use a sonic power that vibrates Hookwolf at just the right frequency that he dissolves, and then I'll be like, just a little
Mhm.
noise was enough to take you down.
That's all me. Um, yeah, yeah, I think Shatterbird's power is dope and terrifying. Would
Yeah,
and like I like that. I really like how they use her later. Um, there's some excellent shit. Excellent shit.
yeah, and moving on to Crawler, we kind of just touched on his power, so I'm gonna kind of scoot
Yep,
along. Um, I had
that's
these
Dinah,
quotes that
I
are
think.
Dyna based. So I'm gonna read this semi-sizable chunk, but she could see those futures unfolding. He would. She could see the pain and the sickness she experienced, the full brunt of her power without her candy to take the edges off, complete with all the details she didn't want. Worst of all were the feedback loops. To go through withdrawal from the drugs, from her candy, while simultaneously being able to see and experience echoes of the future moments where she was suffering much the same way. It was a massive increase in the pain and being sick and mood swings and feedback from her futures. It would never kill her, knock her out, or put her in a coma, no matter how much she might want it to. She had come close to experiencing it once, early in her captivity. Never again. She would obey Coil in everything he asked for before she risked that happening again. Yeah. So that's kind of
Love
like
it.
that's all the stuff you were talking about how she's like self-aware of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And her power, I mean, is, I like that it has the drawback that it does, because what a crazy useful thing. Like, it would be, and I feel the same way about Tattletale too, where it's like if you let that person just unhinged go forever, they could do literally anything.
Also, when she plays chess, it is indeed actually 4D chess, um, but just for her side
Yeah,
only.
for real. Yep.
And I almost wanted to put in the whole like opening two paragraphs, but because her power is just so key to how this chapter works, and it's so interwoven. But it's like
Oh yeah.
all about how she sees. It says tens of trillions of universes, and so it's all that, and then like, it being like just for sake, I know it's not actually four-dimensional to include time, but like
Sure.
that it's like some other thing, and I don't understand how it works, but
Sure.
it's, I'm just for sake of ease gonna say it's like 4D images, so she's got all these like trillions of 4D images that are all like going crazy at the same time, and she can track the whole line of it, um Vale says she gets
Yeah.
the odds, she wins the game with each move she considers and chooses the best odds. How cool. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. And I like the other bit of text you pulled for it. There was safety in the numbers, and following the rules she set on herself kept her power in order, and ensured Coil was tolerant with her, and it meant she didn't have to go without her candy for even a short time. Um, yeah, yeah, like because it makes me think about you know, Taylor's trigger event as well, and like how for her it was like this rapid influx of so much data that she didn't know how to understand or perceive, all hitting her at once, causing like this
It also
sort of
freaked her
noise
out
in her.
so much that she triggered a second time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, and in terms of like Dinah, I don't know how suddenly seeing endless futures more or less rapidly folding in on one another and becoming new possibilities, like the fact that a child was able to sort of receive all of that information and be able to create rules for herself in which to minimize the damage. Like it's both impressive and just it I don't know. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. And uh both Taylor and Dinah have like kind of crippled thinker powers where like, I mean, this is spoily-ish, but it's so vague and abstract that I don't know. It's fine. That
Mm.
they each have like these really powerful powers that are like stripped down so that they can't be used to just fully rig the parahumans game and like, just
Yeah,
win
there is like
automatically.
a weird yeah, there's an abstract system of like checks and balances when it comes to a lot of the powers.
Yeah, there's no like fairness, but there's like levels where the powers themselves are held back from the user to a huge degree.
Right, exactly. Um, yeah, yeah. And for the kind of power that Dinah has, like it takes no stretch of the imagination to imagine the person with that power just completely losing all sense of present and reality. I don't know. It being able to have those rules and like follow them to make sense of it all is just yeah.
Also,
I think it's the only way to play it.
there's like a power combo I can think of that would be like so overload maybe it would kill them. Of like Dinah and the clairvoyant, um, who can like visually see stuff happening at like any distance essentially within like the Earth
Right.
sphere. So like Dinah would be able to see the 4D futures of the entire planet, not just like
Oh
her
my god, not
single
her
sight line.
perception.
Yeah, because
Right.
normally it's just her
Yeah.
one sight line.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're basically taking what she currently sees and multiplying it by, however many billion. Um,
Yeah, like I don't even know how you'd calculate exactly like the factor on it because it's so huge. But
yeah. I mean, it's exponential as is, and it would just only continue to rapidly increase and probably, yeah, like debilitate anyone who had to deal with that much constant data. Um,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Thinker powers are crazy.
and then
Thinker/master
Noelle,
powers are crazy.
yeah, Noelle has a sort of hidden power. I wanted to bring up her, not hidden from the audience, We only
Hmm.
know that it is very, very strong. She is very powerful, and if she loses her cool, she'll just like kill everybody. Um,
Yeah, and it's kind of vague as to how that killing might occur, but then you start to get the info that like, oh, she would literally consume the other people in this room. Like that alone tells you if they know that they likely wouldn't even be able to stop it, whatever power she's holding on to is fucking monstrous.
yeah, yeah, and the fact that she would eat like multiple whole people.
Right, right. Yeah, because like we don't. I think they avoid, and correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I just forgot, but we don't get like a very good idea of her scale in relation to everyone else.
Right,
Aside
we
from
know
that,
she's
she
behind a
does.
big vault, and we've seen her
Yeah,
face in shadow before, but we don't see her in this chapter, and like if she's like so hungry after eating all the extra she's, you know, it is a parahuman's reason, but normally it's where would where's she putting it all?
where does it even go?
Because she,
And as
yeah,
Greg says, look, don't underestimate the matter eater,
yeah.
lad. Yeah, yeah. It's just I mean it's still vague at this point in the story, but it's a nice way to introduce that like, hey, we are really, really, really close to a very unpredictable and extremely dangerous threat. Um, it's cool. They're kind of teasing it in a very interesting way.
Yeah, they love to tease. Um,
That they do.
oh, here, I'm gonna read the audience participation stuff. You had said a question before we started for the next thing, but you didn't type it out, and now I don't quite remember
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you still remember
I
that, if you could
remember.
type it out.
Yeah.
But the audience participation for this week, make up a super limited scope but super useful in the right circumstances thinker power. And going to Discord for the responses, we've got from 2 plus 4 times 5. My idea for a thinker slash breaker precog cape is they freeze themselves in place, sort of like Clock Blocker, and they have to choose the duration of their stasis when they activate it. And they can't perceive or interact with anything. And they get a precognitive vision of the future starting from the moment their stasis ends. And that vision goes for however long they were in stasis. For example, if they enter stasis at 1 p.m. for 5 minutes, they get a precog vision of the events between 1:05 p.m. and 1:10 p.m. Then they exit the stasis at 1:05 p.m. And I think that is a really good power. They essentially spend the time that they're phased out seeing that amount of time of the future roll. And like I don't know, it's so
So
bizarre
fascinating.
because it would also feed into itself of like you would know what you did in that time period too to get those events. So you'd have to carry that out to get the same results. It's like so weird, and it is so niche, the fact that you have to choose how long the duration is beforehand. Um but God, it could be so
Hmm.
useful at the right like way. Like, put them in front of a bunch of monitors and have them do like an 8 hour stasis shift of overnight monitoring the thing, and then, however many hours ahead of an event, you're like, this thing's gonna happen. Assuming that
Yeah, that
I
would
stay
be.
sitting at this monitor.
Yeah, that's like exactly. That's like an interesting take on the desk guy for a hero team.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Would
there's
require
tons
a
of
lot of
stuff like
foresight.
stakeout, like a pre stakeout where you know a meeting is going to happen and you plant them there early enough that you can all like leave but still know what the hell happened at that spot or whatever. It'd be so cool.
If you were able to put that, the person with that power and Tattletale on the same team, they would be an immaculate thinker duo.
Tattle Team, but she doesn't get along with
Tattle
other
Team.
thinkers.
It's true. Can you imagine why?
I'm gonna read Vale's now. Vale said, steak out. But, food waste. So from Vale, and this is another sort of, like,
Narrative.
it's in the form of, like, a Parahumans chapter rather than, like, just a description. So, he sat attached to an EKG, his vitals monitored by a technician outside the room, with a nurse to his left and right carefully holding him upright. They were two of the security-cleared PRT staff that knew his power and its drawbacks. They waited for him to tap his pen on the desk. Drawing a few breaths, he considered, as always, how much he hated his power, triggering over expulsion from failing classes and trying to hide it from his parents. The stress and frankly terror of what was to come led to this. He had to concentrate unmoving and undisturbed to take in the scene. He could feel the power welling up, readying itself, then time stopped. He could now continue to take in the scene, everything frozen and still, but as he concentrated, he understood things about what he looked at. His focus directed the knowledge, the scene clarified with comprehension of anything he was interested in. Deeper and broader understanding that would be forever etched in his mind's eye. The scene with every detail perfectly captured and everything he learned about it available to him forever. The problem that was that he continued to age while time was frozen, and it went fast. Testing seemed to show that he aged about 1 day for every 30 minutes of relative mental concentration. But it varied wildly, and when he snapped back to normal point of view, he had a price to pay. The longer he stared, the steeper the price. He fasted now before these interviews, a lesson in embarrassment learned early on, a glass of water by his hand in a cup that couldn't spill. A glass of water by his hand in a cup that couldn't spill. Nurses ready to start hydration and electrolytes through an IV. Vitals monitored in case anything went wrong. Emergency staff on standby and ready. It was invaluable though. In the time spent viewing a scene, he could know everything about it. Times, dates, trajectories, every detail about every action taken. That led to the scene at the hand. Yeah. Or he could just look at a person and know everything about them. At the price of his life and the need for precautions. Or at the price of a day of his life and the need for precautions. And then Vale had thought of the name Snapshot and then went with this. Kind of don't like the name, but it's good enough.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think that's pretty dope, actually.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a powerful drawback. Like a very powerful power, but a very powerful drawback.
Yeah, it just expends your life. So.
Yeah, you would have to be very like, especially like imagining, upon first triggering, and getting an understanding of that power, like that would be so dangerous. That cape would have probably aged pretty rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All
Cool
right.
stuff. Cool stuff. I like it.
So do you have an answer? I'm like for this.
Really limited scope thinker power.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I don't have a good one off the top of my head. Do you have an answer?
I have a radius around me where I can, without looking at it, read any written like language text. For let's say, I got Taylor range. It's a malleable based on mind state, but it's like several city blocks, and so I'm like an information gathering cape, and the drawback, there's actually, it doesn't say that there is a drawback, just that it's like limited scope. Yeah, I don't have any like physical ways to protect myself. I can just read things. That's all I can do is read things.
I like it. I just thought of one that might maybe fits the parameters. And it kind of leans Tinker, but maybe not. Having the ability to get a structural understanding of how to destroy anything, but you have no clue how it goes together.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty interesting. That is like a tinkerish. That's like how Accord's power is. It's a thinker power, but it's tinkerish because he can build like any non-powered tech basically with his super
Mm-hmm.
skill.
Yeah, and this would be like, you know, whether it be like a vault or a structure or whatever it might be, you would know yeah, Wreck-It Ralph the Parahuman basically, where it's like you know how things what you would need to do in order to cause something to break or fall apart. And I think that could be generally widely applicable, but having no the moment it's broken, you would not be able to look at those same parts and understand how to reassemble any bit of it.
Oh, also my cape's name is Speed Reader.
That's okay. I like that. Mine is Wreck It Ralph, actually.
Yeah, good. All right, that kind of concludes that section, I guess. I don't think. Let me double check. Yeah, I didn't skip any answers. Okay, so oh, Vale says the sad irony is that the movie exists on Earth Bet, and some villain called him that as an insult slash taunt, and it's stuck. Um,
Look, just because he's a bad guy doesn't make him a bad
bad
guy.
guy, or the other way around. Other emphases. Uh,
Um,
but then the
yeah,
question for the next two chapters is going to be: do you want to read it since you wrote it?
sure. If you were a cape, and obviously that's widely applicable, but if you were a cape, what do you think would be your crutch or Achilles heel? What would either emotionally or physically completely halt your ability to use your power or generally act?
So it's a pretty deep one. So
Yeah, really think on it. Dig deep.
it's you know maybe not everybody would want to answer it per se, but let me.
Yeah, don't feel
This
like
is
you have
a
to get really personal about it, but picture yourself as a cool ass cape, whatever that cape might be doing. What could you conceive being the one thing that really that breaks your that breaks your power? The soul
boom.
crushing anxiety count. I don't know if it counts or not, so not sure if I should note it.
Now
If
I'm worried.
it could it could be. I mean, I think you could definitely cite that. I'd be curious to know how that anxiety. It feels general. I know how anxiety, in a general sense, would incapacitate someone, but I'd be curious to see like you're in a cape fight that occurs. How does it stop your power from behaving and that kind of a thing? Don't be worried, Vale. It's fine.
Also, the other thing is like a lot of your normal worst trait, blah 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 things would probably be incorporated into your power. So this would have to be like the thing that stops you in, sort of psychologically despite the I don't know, it's like weird. It has to be like a secondary thing. It can't be your main thing in a way because if it was, it would be your power.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, maybe providing an example, like we could do that in the
Yeah, if you want to write
audience
out like a good
participation channel later.
what you think would be like a
I'll
good
I'll I'll
example.
I'll think on that just to give some context to it because I realize that's a bit of a broader question.
Yeah, I posted what we already have written and then just like post whatever else you think is good context. Um,
Sure.
all right, well, I am going to probably read the links and then start the outro song. Do you have anything that you would like to say? Oh, I'll read this Vale comment first. He's a 26-year-old hero that has yet to go out and use his power. 12 years he's tried to psych himself up to do
Eh,
anything. Yeah.
okay, I like that a lot. Yeah, that's pretty good. Although, hopefully in that 12 years, you would have found yourself in a situation where that power just came up.
Powers do be acting up though.
They do. They do be do. No, I don't think I have anything else to add other than thank you for having me on here, and thanks everyone for participating in the chat and you know for hanging with us.
For sure, for sure. So, the music used in this episode is from Infestation by ScarlettXOX, and you can see Scarlett's Twitch channel at Twitch TV /Scarlett_Rogue, and that's SCARLETT _ROGUE. Our Discord server link can be found in the stream description as well as the YouTube channel description. We've got the author of the work being discussed, supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. Full text of the work is available for free at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is a fan-made audiobook of the whole entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. And we got a thanks and take care from Vale, and I'll start up that outro music and cut our... Oh, wait. Cut our mics in just a second. I realized I loaded up a copy of the same version, so it's not the outro version. And there we go.
You can't leave until you get it.
Well, I got it. We're all good. And I'm gonna mute us. I realized that by trying to block David's audio, I was actually blocking out the outro as well. What a fool! But now I have the normal thing. It'll be fine. Goodbye!